Yeah, okay, great, wonderful. Thank you, Lindsay. So I have been in animation since 2011. I've worked at Atomic Cartoons. I've worked at Wild Brain, Bardell, Titmouse, Icon. Just to give you some background of my experience, I've worked on Lego Avengers, Lego Star Wars, Last Kids on Earth, Night at the Museum, Agent Elvis, and currently working on Spidey and His Amazing Friends. I'm interested to know what kind of experience all of you guys have. If you want to throw that in the comments as well, just think that'd be interesting to know. Have to let you know, have you created a storyboard? I know some of you have because I'm going to be looking at them later, but have you created a storyboard for your online portfolio? Where are you in the process? Have you even like watched any YouTubes about storyboarding like that? So yeah, I'd like to get an idea of your levels. I expect there'll be a wide range, but I'm interested to hear it. So it's January. In the spirit of fresh starts, we are going to proceed from the following assumption that you have been hired to storyboard on a brand new animated series, maybe even the pilot. So typically, if you haven't boarded on a show before, your first storyboarding gig will probably be as a storyboard revisionist, but not always. I'm proof to that exception that it exists because I started boarding on Rocket Monkeys. It's my first storyboarding job. Um, and also, if a new show is starting up, probably the storyboard supervisor and or the showrunner has already handled the first few episodes to get an idea of it, to kind of work out what the show is before they hand it over to the storyboarding, the rest of the storyboarding team, so they can show the team, what is this show, what are limitations, what's the tone, what's the style, and all that kind of stuff. So the entire team isn't like starting from scratch. But let's imagine you are hired for a brand new show, very exciting. And let's go to the next slide, Lindsay. Slide. Perfect. Key terms. These are very important terminology that you will need to know, and we can go into this a little bit further. A sequence is a chunk of a script that you've been assigned, also known as a section. The sequence is composed of scenes. This is a shot, basically from cut to cut. This is different than a scene in a live action show. When you think of a live action show, you think of, okay, there's like, two people talking in a restaurant, and that can be from all sorts of different angles and lots of different shots in that scene. But that's not how it works in animation. A scene is like one shot. There can be many panels. That's what the scene is composed of. And a panel is basically every drawing in the every drawing that you do, every frame as it were, for storyboarding purposes, which of course is different than frames in animation. And we can look at that slide, Lindsay, slide. Here is a screen grab of a Storyboard Pro project that I did for myself called Ruin Nation, which is a post-apocalyptic nightmare. And you can see at the bottom here, I've notated what the scene is. So you can see there's this red part here. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels in this scene. And so basically, it starts cutting to this scene, and then we see some movement and 6 panels, and then cut to another scene. So that's just to give you an idea of what a scene is. And yeah, so this file, this storyboard file, would probably be your sequence. Sometimes you might squeeze 2 sequences into one storyboard file, but usually not. Usually it's one storyboard pro file per sequence. So let's go to the next slide, Lindsay, and talk about your storyboarding team. Who's on it? Who will you interact with? The board supervisor, or the soup, as we call them, the board soup. They hand out the assignments, they check your work, they assign revisions, that sort of thing. The storyboard coordinator, that is the person who gets you the assets that you need. So like if you're missing a design that you need, or an audio file is missing from the voice record, you go to your storyboard coordinator and say, I need this, I need that, can you get it to me? And of course, other storyboard artists. It's usually about, depending on The show, depending how big the sequences are, it's usually about two or maybe three storyboard artists per episode. It really depends on the production, depends on the team, how big is the team. I've been on teams where there's been like four or five storyboard artists, and I've been on teams where there's been like close to 20 storyboard artists. So it can really vary. And then, of course, you'll also have storyboard revisionists who we'll talk about them a little bit more. You don't interact with them too much. But while I'm here on this slide, I wanted to talk about teamwork. Very important. Get to know your team, get to love your team, be part of the team, do teamwork. You need to be clear about everything that happens in the episode. You have to be clear about the characters, the tones. You have to ask questions. You have to interact with your storyboard supervisor. You have to interact with your coordinator. Don't guess about anything. If there's anything is unclear in the script, uh, if you guess, it can really come back to bite you because you're like, oh, maybe I'm not sure about what the back of this prop looks like. I'm just going to make it up. I don't want to bother anyone. I don't want to bother anyone. I'll just do it myself. That I've made that mistake, and it can really come back to bite you. And they'll say, "Oh no, that's not exactly. There's actually a design for that we forgot to give you, or you didn't see, and you'll have to redo a bunch of your work, and it'd be a huge pain in the ass." So don't feel embarrassed about ignorance. You're all on the same team. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Uh,
That's a really good tip. I'm gonna pause you there because I think that's a super important stuff. And from coming from rigging, as a rigging artist, I have been on shows where I've noticed that there's differences in the boards and the props. And so as a rigging artist and a setup artist, we were actually using the wrong props as setting up the shows for the animators. So the faster you catch those little nuances, because animation is a huge team sport and you have a lot of moving parts throughout the departments. And so the faster you catch these little blips, the less work that has to get done because as it goes down the pipeline, your work increases. So I just wanted to commend you for that's a great tip. Don't guess.
yeah, and this is perfect to move into the next slide, which is the pipeline. Because a storyboard artist is like very early on in the process, so every decision you make affects everyone else down the line. So let's take a look at the pipeline. A cartoon episode will start with a script. Then they will give that script to the designs department. They will design the characters, the props, the environments. You should, by the time you start boarding, in theory, you should have all the designs. That is actually rarely how it works. You might have most of the designs, but you probably won't have all the designs. And so there'll be designs for the entire show, like, the main characters will all be designed. And then each episode, when it introduces a new character or a new prop or new location, they'll be designing that on a case by case basis. After the designs, oh, sometimes at the same time, usually, is the audio. So the voice actors will hopefully have done their recordings. So you can have that to use for your acting. If they don't, a small word about scratch tracks. Scratch tracks are just placeholder audio tracks. It's usually done by either the storyboard team or anyone who's on the project. The producer or the coordinator may say, "Hey, we don't have our audio records for this. You'll have to wait. We're going to get them in 2 weeks. We need to start the episode, but we're not getting the audio for 2 weeks. So if anyone wants to step forward and record all the lines from like Spider-Man or all the lines from the Rhino, um, that can be actually a really fun kind of side part of the storyboarding. That I am a professional voice actor, so I always like, yes, put my hand up. I'll do the Rhino. I'll do the Rhino, sure. And yeah, and that can be a fun thing to do. And then after the audio records, then it's your job, storyboards. And after your boards comes the editing. The editors start working on the animatic as soon as the director approves your boards. And then once the animatic is locked, then it goes to animation, which is a whole world that I don't really understand. The next slide, Lindsay,
Skip
if you
the
would be so
rigging
good.
part. I didn't even catch this, but you did skip the rigging part before
Well,
it goes to
tell me where the rigging where the rigging part
it would
starts.
start after designs. It starts after designs.
So
We hit it.
2.5 in between
Yeah,
designs and audio. Okay, awesome.
I didn't even catch
Well,
that in
see,
these slides.
I
Right on the
don't,
bird.
I, I don't deal with riggers. That's a whole nother world as well. So
That's
I
why we
learned
started
something
this
today.
program. You're talking to
Amazing.
riggers now.
Wonderful. Let's go to the next slide, which is the schedule. So, series, let's imagine this show is a series of 11-minute episodes. Usually it's 4 to 6 weeks per 11-minute episode for storyboards. You will get 4 weeks for roughs, and then there will be a director review, which is also known as the boards pitch. And we'll talk about that more a little bit later. And then after the director review, after the pitch, you'll get 2 weeks for your cleans, and that will include any revisions from the director that says, oh, this scene isn't working, or you've drawn this character with his head's too big, or whatever, all that kind of stuff. So you do your cleans. And that's where you basically cross all your T's and dot all your I's, make sure you basically dot all your I's because you want everyone looking in the proper direction. So you'll be drawing those pupils, making sure the correct number of fingers on hands and stuff like that. And then there will be the client review. At that point, you're pretty much done. The revisionist team will take it away to do any further revisions down the line from you because it's time for you to start on your next episode. So let's go to the next slide and look at some of the reference material, the designs that you'll get. There is an advantage starting on a show that's well into production. If the show has a history, like if it has pre-existing seasons, or if it's a reboot of an old show like Masters of the Universe, or if it's based on a book, there will be reference material that you can use, a rich design library. You might have existing storyboards that the director or the supervisor will say, yeah, this happens on Spidey a lot because it's a preschool show, so they don't mind repeating things. So they can say, just make this scene in the sewer exactly like the episode from last season. So you can actually go back and not necessarily copy, but let that inform you about how to proceed with that scene. And as same with if you're in season 2 or 3, you might have fully animated episodes to look at, and that can be super helpful too. Just see how the characters move and everything. Let's move. Oh, so here we can see some rocket monkeys. This is Kevin the Unicorn from the episode 42, Party Planet, drawn by my good friend David Gagnon. And
And I'm gonna interrupt you. I also worked on Rocket Monkeys. I was
yeah,
a Flash builder at that time, and Rocket Monkeys is still one of my favorite cartoons. It was so funny. You guys did a phenomenal job.
I have very warm feelings about it. But apart from being the first show I storyboarded on, it was super cartoony, which I'm totally into. So lots of fart jokes and people getting mutilated or characters getting mutilated. I
I
don't know if they're
still
actually
quote
people.
it. I still quote that movie, that show.
And so you can see on the design they give you might get a turnaround, you might get more angles of a character. Probably usually you would depending on the show, but not always. And of course, it shows you the height reference of everyone. So you draw your characters the correct size. Let's go to the next slide. And we can look at Dave McDougall's.
I have a quick question. How
Yeah,
important is it to draw your characters to scale in an animatic? And how important is it to be on model for your boards for the animatic?
we'll actually look at that in another slide about what the difference is between drawing for design and drawing for storyboards. But you should always get the sizing correct. If a character is like a head smaller, especially if it's like a two-shot and you're just seeing their head and shoulders, you want to draw them the correct size. Yeah, so this is some Dave McDougall AOK expression samples. These are very useful. You can see with the range of emotion and how cartoony you can get for the facial expressions and also for the posing as well. And yeah, let's go to that next slide. And we'll talk about show Bibles, specifically storyboard style guides. So a show Bible is a term that's used for multiple kinds of documents. A show Bible can be specifically for a team, or it can be specifically for a show, but also a show Bible is something that someone who wants to make a show will create as part of their pitch package to get the show made. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about specifically the storyboard style guide. Here you can see one from, this is from Sherm Cohen in the SpongeBob show. And it just is basically like, this is how we draw these characters. This is kind of our visual language for the show, what not to do and what to do. So you can see like, don't draw characters in a straight line, have them curvy. Don't draw scenes straight on, have them from an angle. So that's, yeah, just what the do's and don'ts in the visual language of the show. And then moving forward to the next slide, please. We can see, this is what I was talking about, the difference between drawing for design and drawing for storyboard. So everything's simplified, some things exaggerated. You can see Moon Girls. This is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. You can see Moon Girl's glasses on the boards are way bigger than they would be. It's just, you want everything to read visually as quickly as possible with as few lines as possible, because storyboarding is a lot of work and you have a limited amount of time. So you don't want to be too detailed. You don't want to waste the time if you don't have to drawing this kind of stuff. So yeah, I hope everyone's taking screen grabs of all this important information, by the way, although it's going to be recorded, so you can do it later. Let's move to the script. Next slide, please. This is a script I grab. I don't have permission to use any of the scripts that I have. So I just grabbed one from that was already on the internet from an episode of Rick and Morty. And this shows you, we can look at everything on this page. Number one, read the entire script, even the sequences you have not been assigned. Very important. I would suggest reading it twice if you have the time. And we can see right at the top, you can see top left, you can see the sequence number. And then down the middle, you can see a sequence break and then the new sequence number. This is sequence number 5 and 6. So as you can see, one sequence here is like half of a script page, but a sequence can be 3, maybe even 4 pages. Take note about where and when each scene happens, which is at the top of the script. This one says it's the interior and it's day. So usually you don't have to do anything special unless something is taking place at night. They may ask you to do like a filter, a gray filter if it's night. They may not. Screen direction for the sequence might be indicated. Scripts might have, typically I would say scripts, you will usually have notations on them. You will get them in PDF format these days. We don't really, I print out my scripts, probably not supposed to, but I print them out and I will mark them physically with my old pen and marker, just because I like going to a restaurant and sitting down and letting especially the early stages when you're just reading the script, I just like, the gears are spinning and I'm just like making notes and doing doodles of what I think a scene might be. And then, yeah, so pay attention to whose sequences are whose, of course. If you see something on a script that's in all caps, that means there's usually design for it that you need to refer to. And just a little note, for an 11-minute episode, scripts are usually 17 pages, and for a 22-minute episode, they're around 34. I made a joke. I had a pitch meeting yesterday, and I made a joke that if we start every page after 16 in the new season, I'm just going to tear off those pages and throw them in the garbage, because scripts are just getting longer and longer and longer, and everyone complains about it. So that is. Did I miss anything about the script? I think that's everything about the script. You want to hook up sections, very important. So that's another reason to talk to your other storyboard artists. If you're going from one section to another, and then a different storyboard artist is taking over for you, you want to make sure everything hooks up. So once again, communication. All right, meetings. Next slide, please. Look at that, we're trucking along. You will usually have 2 meetings, not including, we have board meetings with the entire team every week, which is just like checking in with any new directives coming down the pike from the client or directors or whatever. But the main meetings you'll have is the kickoff meeting, also known as the episode launch. By this time, you should already have the script and should have read it. You may have a day to do this. You may have a weekend to do this. Maybe if you're lucky, you have more time than that. Who is in the kickoff meeting? The board artists for that episode. The coordinator, the supervisor, maybe the director, and probably someone from design to answer questions about that anyone might have about any of the designs, or if there are designs coming for specific things. What happens in the meeting? Well, it's recorded for reference, so you can go back and check the meeting for anything, any confusion you might have. And in the meeting, you will go through the entire script with the entire team. The supervisor or director will go through it and call out their notations, the important actions of the story, the heart of the story, the character's attitude, how is this character changing from the beginning of the episode to the end of the episode, if that's relevant. You look at all the different designs, talk about how to draw them, scale, size, all that kind of stuff, and potential pitfalls, things to watch out for. Again, screen direction. They may discuss that in the kickoff, or they may say, figure it out and talk to your other people who are working on that episode. And then you go to your roughs. And like we said, we spend 4 weeks on our roughs typically. And then the next meeting you'll have, once you're done your roughs, is the storyboard pitch. So at this point, you'll have submitted all of your sequences, whether that's be uploading the files, and the supervisor has probably looked at them and might have already given you some notes, or at least notated the file for the storyboard pitch. Who is in this meeting? The director, the supervisor, the coordinator, and all the board artists on this episode. And basically, in this, you play your scene, you pitch your scene. If it's Storyboard Pro, which I think is pretty standard. At every studio I've worked at now, they're using Storyboard Pro. So you'll play your scene. It can be anywhere, again, from like a half a minute to like, I think the longest scene I had yesterday was like 3.5 minutes. And then the director, then the director will have made notes, and you'll go through the scene and he'll tell you about what you need to change, what's working, what's not working. And then you'll take those notes and you'll have your 2 weeks for your cleans. You want to make your characters on model. You want to indicate all your backgrounds. You probably want to put matte layers under your characters if you haven't done that, or if it's important for the show. It's not always important. If you've made like red arrows, they might ask you to remove red arrows for like indications of camera movement or character movement or people turning their heads or whatever.
Sorry,
Um,
can I ask you a quick question?
yeah, you can.
Can you explain what a matte painting is?
So a matte
Or not
layer is like,
actually
yeah,
matte.
when you're boarding characters on a background, it might be important to put a white layer underneath the characters so they stand up from the background and it's clear where the characters are and the definition of the characters. Does that make sense?
Sure does.
Awesome. Where are we now? So yeah, let's go. Before we go to the next slide, just a note about revisions. It's not uncommon to have breaks in schedule sometimes, and so you might be shifted around to other episodes that you weren't initially assigned to help out. Maybe somebody's sick, or maybe you just have extra time. And so they might send you to work on other episodes, and that could be basically expect the unexpected in the storyboard team. And with that, let's go to the next slide, which is time management and expectations. Oh no, previous slide, yeah. Okay. Like I said, expect the unexpected. Don't be precious. Everything you draw may be cut. I've had episodes where a lot of my work is down the toilet. So one thing that David Gagnon said to me early on was like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It does have to be done. So yeah, make your schedule, manage your time well. I would say I usually do when I get the script, I do very, very rough thumbs. Like if I'm getting like 4 sequences in an 8 sequence episode, I will do very rough thumbnails for all of those sequences before I start doing any of my like roughs. So like thumbs is like just the barest of bare bones of what, and probably no one else is going to be looking at your thumbnails besides you. So as long as you understand what's going on, yeah, I will just do the entire sequence in very rough thumbnails just to see, just to work out like what again, screen direction, am I where the characters move, getting a sense of the environment, camera angles, and kind of finding out, okay, how big is this episode or how big is this sequence? Which sequence am I going to spend the most time at? Because it's not always, uh, two pages of a script may not be the same in terms of like workload for storyboard artists. So it's very helpful for me to I like just to have that so I know how much time I'm spending on each sequence. So you don't board like 3 sequences and then for your fourth sequence you only have like 3 days left and you realize, oh, this sequence is way harder and longer than I thought it was just by reading the script. So and then during the roughs you will do more of the acting and paneling out of and when I say panel out, it's mean like you may draw a character like shaking their head, and you may draw that by indicating the red lines. But to panel out means to actually like pose it out left, right, left, right. So 2 drawings, A, B drawing kind of a thing. So that's what I mean by when I say paneling out. So it's 10:35. I can talk about software.
Wait, hang on. We have a lot of questions, so
Okay, let's go to the questions then.
I think we should hop into questions right now,
Cool.
and I'll start to get to those with you if that's okay.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna
We've
quickly
got a
turn my
lot of
heat down
really
because
good
I'm
questions.
for some reason I'm super hot.
No worries. And double check to make sure that nobody's accidentally sent you a question as well. But I'll switch over to this QA panel so that we're on the right slide. And we can always go back to a slide if the visual is needed. And then if you have a question, please send it to me, the organizer, Lindsay. Um, and then that way I will be able to regurgitate these questions for Toren to answer. But let me scroll up because we got some questions that are buried. All right. So the first question that Toren actually posed out to everybody was he was curious about everyone's experience. Um, and so we've got a lot of 2D animators, character designers, people that are trying to focus on character design and story development. They're all saying hello. We've got some comp artists here that does animatics. Relatively new grad, currently teaching at the school that you graduated from. Congratulations, that's pretty cool. You must be pretty talented. We got some
Sweet.
early works in progress for some storyboards, lots of students working on their thesis. Um, okay, where is the first question? And we got a character artist for some games too, which is pretty cool. All
Cool.
right. So oh, we're still talking about unfinished. I'm still scrolling. We have unfinished storyboard sequences in the portfolios. You're going to want to finish those. How do you feel about unfinished sequences in a portfolio, Torin? Are you able to show hints of sequences, or would you prefer seeing the whole thing if you were hiring?
Um,
Quick question.
That's a good question. I've never hired anyone for storyboards before, so that might be. I would say if you can finish them, finish them. Like, do you mean like you've drawn half of it and there's no ending to it, or do you mean like it's unfinished because it's very rough? That is the kind of the question. Like,
I would say
I
that
would
it's rough.
say as long as you can, as long as you like the style of your drawing is important, but if you can tell a story, that's more important. Like if you can visually show action, and if you understand cinematography and camera movement and composition, um, that's more important than, do you know, are you an expert with design and or physical anatomy or that kind of thing. I hope that is helpful in some way.
I think so. Okay, so a question. Are board supervisors and storyboard coordinators typically from a background of working as storyboard artists, or are those roles typically held by people with backgrounds in production coordinator roles?
Storyboard coordinators are not necessarily artists,
Hmm.
but a storyboard supervisor will definitely be an experienced storyboard artist. Usually it goes like you started as a revisionist, you become a storyboard artist, you go to a storyboard supervisor if you want to. I've been thinking about it, but it's also a lot more work, and your week is full of meetings, and I'm like, I don't want to do meetings. I just want to draw cool stuff. So I'm it's a I assume it pays better, but and then after supervisor, you might go to director. But I actually found a lot more directors come out of editing.
I've heard that too, actually. I've heard that editors become directors.
Yeah,
They develop a very keen eye for storytelling.
exactly.
And then they also learn the language from all the departments because they get to see a little bit more. So
Yeah.
I've actually heard that as well. And I would say that that goes for any department. If you are becoming a supervisor, you have to know the skill. Whereas if you are going for a coordinator job, you have to be more organized. So, and comfortable sending emails and talking to artists and getting questions and kind of connecting the dots. A coordinator will go out and find the information for people, as Toren mentioned earlier. You don't want to guess. You want to ask questions so that you have that information, like the correct information. And a coordinator's job would be to have the correct information. Um, and I would say that's for any department. Okay, so next question. This one is about live action. Has different terminology and meanings for sequence, scene, and panel. And that is something that Torin and I discussed as we were making this. So Torin, maybe you can talk a little bit about the language for live action versus animation, just to go over it one more time. And they're also wondering if it's more challenging working for live action because of the different language. I don't know if it'd be I don't know if it'd be more challenging. I think it would just be different. But once you
It
know what it is, it's the same almost.
Yeah, I have done some boards for live action stuff. Usually it's more for like pitches than actually like boarding out an existing show. But they're usually a lot more detailed, but there's a lot less of them. Like there's less camera movement, there's less like you just need to show where the characters are in relation to each other, and it has to look more realistic because it's live action. It's going to be more realistic. So that is where you definitely need to have your skills down in terms of anatomy and perspective and stuff like that. You need to have your perspective down for any show, any kind of show, even like 2D shows, but especially for 3D shows, you need to get your perspective skills up to snuff. So that was
Yeah.
always the hardest part for me was perspective. But there are tricks. There are books you can read, and there's stuff out there so you can bone up on your perspective. Yeah, but in terms of like, I haven't worked that much, and it's been a while since I've done anything for live action. So I would just reiterate, a scene in live action is different than a scene in animation. In terms of like, when you do a storyboard profile, a scene is basically a shot.
Yeah, and I'm gonna add that storyboarding for 2D, 3D, and live action in general, visually drawing is going to be very different. We run into those problems all the time in production when a board artist has more 3D experience, they'll bring in a lot more camera moves to a 2D world, and that's harder for us to mimic. So anytime you see a camera going around whenever a character does a 360 on screen, everybody usually in a 2D environment, we're all like, oh boy, how are we gonna make this one come
Yeah,
to life? So
that
So
And that's
that's
and like I
probably more challenging.
yeah, like I said, that's it's important to know your show, and that's something that will be whether it's 2D or 3D. That's something that when you get on the show, if they don't have a storyboard Bible, then you should know. I mean, starting out, I started out on 2D, so it's just everything's very flat. Like Rocket Monkeys, everything was very flat. Characters don't you don't see the backs, you don't see profiles, you don't see straight on characters. It's all three quarter, and and whereas for 3D, you have these sets, these big sets that come pre-made and you're using Blender to move the sets around to get the shot you want, and then you might do a screen grab or you might do a draw over, and really do some fun, crazy action. That's why most action shows are 3D and most comedy shows are 2D.
Okay, we got another question. And this is a good question. I mean, all these questions are good. But I'm seeing these questions and I'm thinking, how often do I see these questions out in the public? And I don't. So I'm really appreciating some of these questions here. So I thought this one was a really unique question. Would background and layout be done during the design process, or would that be on the storyboard artist to do while storyboarding?
So if you're doing a 2D show, I worked on Agent Elvis, and they would give us the 2D. They would give us the designs for the environments, and they would say use this art, right? Like put this art in the background of your shots. Um, it would be a big environment and like a room or whatever, and if you want a close up, you have that same artwork, just a small area of the artwork, and then if you do a reverse on the other character, you use the other side of that drawing for their side. So the design will be as minimal as possible, as few designs as possible for environments. um so what was the question again? Give me that question one more time.
Uh, they wanted to know if the background, well, if the background and layout would be done during the design process, or if the storyboards
Yeah.
handle that.
So for 2D, it's pretty much you have what they give you. For 3D, you have the 3D file, and you can move that around as much as you want. Um, so I would say for 3D, the storyboard artist has more choices they can make. Um, but for
Which is
2D, less
usual.
so.
I would say that's very common. You have,
Yeah,
2D can be limiting. You have to be clever, and you have to be able to match what's provided.
yeah.
3D, you can kind of create it as it goes.
But also for 2D, you can do things that you can't do in or if you're doing a 3D style with a 3D show with a very specific style, you could have like you think of like SpongeBob SquarePants or Ren and Stimpy. They'll like a shot will be like a painting, right? Like a gross out painting or something like that. So, or it might be like you can do whip pans in 2D, but you don't really do whip pans in 3D. You would do a camera movement, but you wouldn't like draw out, a whip pan, which is like all those, anyone who's watched anime knows what a whip pan is. It's like all those
It's a whoosh,
colors.
the
Yeah, it's a
visual whoosh.
whoosh. Yeah, visual whoosh. Or like other like comic book like splashes and stuff like that, where like stylistically you can have more fun with 2D than you usually can. Of course, when you're doing
Star
something
Wars.
like Into the Spider-Verse, all those rules go out the window because it's kind of a hybrid of both.
Okay, the next question is, it's a good one, another good one. This is about the timeline of storyboarding and animation. So, are the timelines this are the questions actually are the timelines exactly the same between storyboarding departments and animation departments? I don't know if you're gonna be able to answer the animation timeline, but uh,
I don't know how long an animator spends on an episode.
it's how long would you say the whole process of storyboarding? Because I think that it's very long to go from script to final animatic? How long does that take on average?
Well, like I
On
said, for an
a
11-minute episode,
on a
we
fun
get
11-minute episode?
yeah, for an 11-minute episode, we get 6 weeks. We get 4 weeks for our roughs. We have the meeting with the director. Any revisions we need to do from that time, we have another 2 weeks to do the cleans, including the revisions. So it's usually about 6 weeks. Again, that depends. And you know, I I also worked on features, and that can be wildly like they may hire you for a couple weeks, they may hire you for a year, they might hire you for more than a year. It really depends on what they need and how big their team is, and if they're on their schedule or not.
Yeah, and you'll notice too, like every department is broken up into maybe not every department, but I think what you're describing all these phases that your boards are going through. So they start at script, and then you go through the roughs, and then you have the meeting with the director, then you get the director notes, and then goes to a revisionist. I'm paraphrasing here because I don't remember exactly what those steps are, but um, that takes time. That's a process of teamwork and collaboration. And then in animation, you have that as well. And I don't know it as well. Maybe that's a good question for Lubke when he does his talk next week. We can kind of follow up with him there. I'll I'll do a little star. But an animation episode kind of goes through the same thing. So your episode is going to go through posing. And then it's going to go through its first pass of animation. Then you're going to get a second pass of animation. That might go to you're going to be working with your supervisor. The scenes are going to be going back and forth. You're going to be getting notes, but then that whole episode will go to the client, and then the client's going to give you notes. So if you're working on a Lego show, the Lego is going to want to know what's going on, and then they're going to be able to give you notes. And so it goes back to you, and then you do the work, and you bring out those notes for the client. And then if there's another pass, if let's say your show's on Apple TV, because Apple TV is very picky, they have a long list of requirements. And you also have to go through a legal pass. There's a lot of passes in a cartoon episodes. And these are tips that we're going to start bringing out to you guys. But it can still take a long time. It can still take 6 to 8 weeks to get an episode animated. Once it has to go through all those passes, and then you've got QC, and then compositing will go through it, and it goes back and forth a whole bunch. So this is really where we start talking about like the whole production of animation, a whole pipeline. It takes a while for an episode to get done. Sometimes it's like 20 weeks from script, what Toren's saying, to all the way over to compositing. So that's kind of what scheduling looks like. And we'll get into production tips as well eventually, but not today, not this month. All right, so someone is asking, they want to know what your thumbnails look like, and do you show your thumbnails to your supervisor? So maybe when you go into the feedback process, you can give us a little demo of what your thumbnails would look like compared to
Sure.
a final drawing. How?
Briefly, I could just say like my thumbnails are just shapes, like where the characters are in the frame. They can just be a circle and a couple of lines for a character. Um, and generally, no, I wouldn't. My supervisor would never see those unless at that point I'm like confused about something, like, and I have questions and I want to, or if I have some kind of crazy bold idea that we've never done before on the show and I want to be like, well, can we do this? Then I might show them my thumbnails. But usually nobody sees any of my work until after the 4 weeks are done on my roughs. You start submitting. You don't submit all of your sequences on one day. Like you finish a sequence and you submit it, and you finish the next sequence and submit it so that the supervisor has time to go through before the pitch meeting and make notes. But yeah, they don't usually see my thumbnails. Those are for me.
Okay, next question. How do you coordinate with the other board artists working on an episode to make sure everything flows coherently? And how is an episode split up across storyboard artists? Good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So a script, let's say again, the script is 8 sequences. Usually if let's say there's 2 board artists working on that script. Um, and let's take a Spidey and His Amazing Friends example. And you might think that the board artist number one, let's say me, does sequences 1 to 4, and the other board artist does sequences 5 to 8. But not necessarily, because maybe sequence 1 and sequence 8 both happen in the headquarters, and the rest of the sequences happen in, like, I don't know, there's a waterfront, and then there's a museum or something like that. So usually the board artist, it'll be split up per location, so that one board artist is just doing that location. Um, Not necessarily, it may not be possible to do it that way, but it can be broken up in any number of amazing and wonderful ways between the board artists. And again, it depends on how many board artists are on that show. I've done shows where I've been the only board artist on an episode, so I don't have to worry about. I know where everything's happening and what the screen direction is. But if you're working with other board artists and you're handing off one, if you go from one scene to another, and another board artist is basically picking up where you left off, then it's very important to communicate. Are they going left to right? Are they going right to left? Who's of these 3 characters, who's in front, who's in the middle, and who's in back? So that when they take over, they're drawing everyone. They're drawing, it's consistent, it hooks up. So that's hugely, hugely important.
Okay, so we still have more questions. I just stopped sharing my screen. But how do you coordinate with the? Oh, I already asked that question. Whoops. Okay,
As for
books.
how, you just talk to them. You ask questions on the chat, or if they're in the studio, you go over there and you say, "Hey, look at my screen."
It's true. It's true. That's the thing that I miss most about being in studio. It's because I used to be able to get up from my desk and walk around and ask the questions that I needed to know immediately instead of writing an email, and then I would know right away instead of tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, what are some book references or resources that you could recommend to learn about storyboarding in the industry?
That's a great question. I think I have something. Let me pull up something I can put in the chat, maybe.
We can always
Um,
answer that question afterwards in the
yeah,
chat.
there's a really good website. YouTube, just how to storyboard on YouTube will get you a lot. But there's a link I always share with someone that I should have had ready. Um,
Also,
but
we can
yeah,
add it to the
we'll
Discord.
put that in later. Yeah, it's a great resource.
Every frame, is it every frame a painting?
No, but that is also good. How to draw, here we go. It's flubinewbie.com/comp1.html, drawing and composition for visual storytelling. I can share that in the Discord right now in the boards channel, if that's helpful.
Okay, so another question, when pitching your boards, would you need to submit them as click-through panels or as an animatic?
Basically, as an animatic, we started using Storyboard Pro, oh gosh, 6 or 7 years ago for some studios, for Atomic anyway. Bardell was like the last on the old drawing each individual panel on a different. Anyway, Storyboard Pro, I kind of hated it at first, because now not only are we drawing the panels, we're in charge of the camera movement, we're in charge of adding the audio and moving that all around. But I came to love it because it gives you so much more control. So once you learn Storyboard Pro, it's pretty amazing. Um,
I'm going to also say that unless you're in the States, because that's actually a unionized job that falls in the editors. So you'd be an animatic editor. So in Canada, we actually, that responsibility falls on you. But if you
oh,
are anywhere near LA or the US, that would be a very big hot topic for unionization,
oh,
and
that's
that
interesting.
you would be in trouble. Yeah. So depending on
I
where
didn't
you
know that.
are, you kind of have to know where that animatic stuff lies.
Okay. Well, for me personally, yeah, we basically we give them the Storyboard profile. That's what we hand in. So we do it all in Storyboard Pro. It's basically an animatic. We could export it to a move file, but it's we hand in the storyboard profile. So if people are using other software out there, I haven't used anything but Storyboard Pro for like I said, probably 6 or 7 years.
Okay, we have so many more questions to go through. I don't know if we're going to be able to. We should probably get into uh, our 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 talk, but we'll figure out a way to put out these questions. I don't know, or we'll
I'm
see
happy
if
to
we.
answer questions, general
I'm gonna do.
questions on the Discord
Yeah, I'm gonna do
later.
one. I'm gonna find one more question, and we can take our micro break now. So I'm gonna get up and just do that. Just stretch my legs. Doo, 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 doo. I'm gonna find one more question though. Oh, okay, perfect. I got a good one. This question is about revisionists. Um, you mentioned earlier that you never really talk with the revisionists if you're a storyboard artist. Are they not in the same studio? Who does the revisions?
That I like in my day-to-day work, it doesn't really come up. I do work. I go into the studio. They are in the same building. They're in the same room. I'm friends with the revisionists. Um, but yeah, it's usually people who are newer to the industry. Sometimes I would take a revisionist job because it's easier in terms of like you're not making decisions. A revisionist is just basically doing what they're told, whereas a storyboard artist, you have to interpret the script, you have to interpret the scenes. And that's not to say sometimes if if you're a good revisionist, they might say, we really need you to do this small scene. Like I was a revisionist on Last Kids of Earth, Last Kids, and the director came to me and he said, "Can you do a montage? We need a montage." So, that week was like doing a montage. And so I was basically boarding from zero, even as a revisionist. But yeah, storyboard revisionists, they come, you hand, like I said before, once you're done your 6 weeks, you hand your stuff off to the revisionists to do any further changes that come down the line. That's the revisionist team because you're going to be starting your new episode, and so you're reading the script for the next script at that point.
Would you say that a revisionist is a really good intro to storyboarding job, like a first step?
Yeah, that's usually how it goes. Like I said, that wasn't my experience, but that is usually how it goes. Like just people who are less experienced will be hired on as revisionists because you're kind of learning on the job as well. And you can see all the boards that people are doing, and then you're just a revision might be like the character's looking in the wrong direction, so you just need to change the eye direction, or it may be like there's something more broad that needs to be fixed. Maybe a design is wrong or the character is the wrong color. You might think, what colors in storyboards? It happens. Um, but it could be like, you're not usually going to get, we need this scene from scratch, but sometimes you might. Sometimes you might have to, even as a revisionist, like really spend a lot of work and make those decisions that I took a break from by getting hired as a revisionist.
Okay, so I think that that concludes the first part of our presentation. And now I'm gonna give you the controls, Toren, and you can walk us through. I hope everybody took like a quick stretch. Toren, I can't tell if you're standing or,
I am standing.
yeah. Okay, you're gonna be the presenter now. And we're gonna let Torin drive. He's
Okay,
gonna go
great.
through the work. We also have an extra, this is a tool that I really like to use when we're going over work with people. It is a I did not copy the link in advance. It is a professional tool. We do use it in the animation studios. It's called Sync Sketch, and what it does is it allows you to replay animation, animatics, so videos specifically, without any lag. So if we're talking about an animation, it's probably not as necessary for storyboarding, since storyboardings have a lot more pop, so it's kind of a natural lag to them anyway. But I'm going to share a link in the timeline. So if you want to follow along on Sync Sketch, but I'm still going to be sharing, like we're still going to see Toren's screen, so it's not a big deal. You can kind of follow along in either spot. We just ask that if you are on Sync Sketch, the one thing that it is possible to do is you could accidentally be moving uh, the screen around. So we ask that you don't touch the controls. Let Toren drive the show and sit back and relax. And whether you're watching it through this channel or that channel, you should be good to go.
Sweet. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Nice. This is Sam Ronacher shared this in the Discord. And I thought it was a good one to start with because it's very simple, single location. Let me see if I can make it full screen here and big in that. Yeah, so thank you for Sam for sharing this with us. Let's get my drawing tool. Yeah, right. Okay, great. Yeah, so this is a Toy Story thing going on here. It's a very straightforward 3-character conversation. So I thought it might be a good one to start with. Generally, this is a pretty good starting image. If you're introducing a scene to the audience for the first time, we do what we call the establishing shot. I don't know if this particular scene, and most of the stuff that's submitted, I don't know like what the context is for, like, would this appear as a small segment of a larger story? I don't know. But if we are imagining that this was starting out a show, then I would do an establishing shot, which is like, where are these characters? It looks like there might be sitting in a play set of some kind. So I would do like the entire room where you could see this set. Maybe even like if they're in, I can't remember the kid's house from Toy Story, you might start on the neighborhood and do like a slow push in while the first character's line is over top. But this is not too bad. And I think I can click through here. Let me just, I don't want to draw anymore. I want to click. Can I escape? Okay, perfect. This is all good. 2-3 shot, acting. So here's a 2 shot. This is fine. Some acting. Back to the 3 shot. That's fine. I'm just going to point out the trouble spots. This is fine. And I think this is our first, what I would give a note on. So we're going from a 2 shot with Bo Peep, I think that is. And then we go to another 2 shot where she's, I don't know if this is a cut or if this is some kind of a camera orbit. If this is a camera orbit, that would be okay. That's more of a 3D show thing than a 2D show thing. We don't really do camera orbits in 2D shows because they require a lot of animation work. So I wouldn't, this is kind of bumping me. So I would just go to a single shot, a single on Woody, or a single on, yeah, I guess it's Bo Peep is talking, so I would go to a single on her. This is fine. This is fine. One little note about her head is reaching the top of the frame, which is kind of, this is something I noticed in a lot of the submissions, is you either want to cut off a character's head on like their forehead, so it's very clear that they're being cut there, or you want to give them more room at the top. You don't want a tangent of the character's top of the frame and the top of the character's head. That's a storyboard no. This is all fine. the nice over the shoulder there. One, I'm not sure what's happening with these arrows. Is he shaking his head? If he is shaking his head, then you might get a note. This would be fine for roughs, but if this was a clean board, the director or the supervisor might ask you to panel out the head shaking so that there's different poses. So that might be a note you get. That's all fine. This is all good. Then she comes into frame. That's nice. A reverse, reverse. Nice cut in to the hand. Oh, there's more acting. Good acting. And then he's like, oh, okay. And then nice insert there. Yeah, again, this is a little awkward going between these two panels, just because all three characters are basic. It's kind of a what's the word I'm looking for? A jump cut, because they're basically the same size and the same places in the frame. So I would avoid this. I would just like go to a single to break those two up. And that's that one. So yeah, pretty straightforward stuff. If you wanted to make it more interesting, you might, gosh, I don't know. You might, I think it's fine the way it is. It communicates everything it needs to communicate. You don't need to get super fancy with this kind of stuff. They're tight. The framing is tight on the characters who are having the emotional reactions. So that's pretty good. I like it. Let me see if I can.
I think that's I'm gonna chime in for a quick second. I think that's a really good idea when you're practicing storyboards. Um, if you are more like reusing something that's already very familiar. So in this case, they're using Toy Story. We all know the story of Toy Story. We know these characters very well. So is that like a great experiment to like kind of workshop some of your own storyboard skills with characters that are already really well known in scenarios like this?
Yeah, for sure. When I was getting into 3D boards, I was doing Atomic Cartoons had a little a workshop that they were providing for people who wanted to get into storyboards, and the assignment was basically um, take a show that you like. It was suggested in this one that you take the opening scene from the Avengers and you just storyboard that. It's already on the screen. You're watching it, but your assignment is just to board it, to board the compositions, to board the camera movements, so you can see what works, and you can start to build up your chops. Just working from an existing property, which I would absolutely recommend anyone do. Next, maybe we'll go to. Let's try this. Let's try this one. This is Agamino is the name of the person on Discord, and they had a Western radio play. I'm not sure. I think I shared sound, so that should be okay. Let me zoom in a bit. Oops. Hang on. All right, so let's look at it.
Jim, I'm not leaving until I've talked to you.
Leave me alone, Marshal. Can't you leave me alone?
I'm coming to talk to you, Jim.
No! No, stay back! I warn you!
Mr. Dillon, don't do it. That's a crazy man.
That's a frightened man, Chester. I'm coming on up.
I think I lost sound. Let's actually look at it. Again, if we were opening the scene, I would start with a bigger establishing shot, because we don't really get one until even here. It doesn't show where the characters are. It shows the environment. It doesn't show the characters. So I might start on something like either the three characters, a nice wide shot of the three characters, preferably in relation to the building. This is all great drawing and great acting. I'm unsure. There's two buildings in this frame. I'm not sure what building is important. So I would take whichever one it's supposed to be. They both have one door and this 6-panel window. But whatever it is, I would put the important building in the middle of the frame, and you can have the other ones. There, erase those drawings. It didn't erase the drawings. Okay, that's fine. So I'm trying to figure out, one thing I'm having difficulty with is the size relation of the characters. This guy in this frame in particular, this guy looks really, really short, like almost as if he's standing, he's on his knees. You know, this guy's, it doesn't go outside of the, anyway, but I think you can see, like, I feel like his head should be, like, even if he's short, I feel like his head should be like here. And this guy, I would either cut him off or bring him fully into frame. Because again, there's this kind of tangent that's happening where it's just awkwardly cut off. Or, you know, remove him entirely from the frame if you wanted to. What else can I say about this? Screen direction is generally fine. I like the POV shot. That's all fine. Don't have any big problems there. He's got a shotgun. It's fine. He's talking to the other guy now, so he's looking to the left. Now he's kind of going, so here's the screen direction issue. He was on the left, and the guy with the gun was on the right. And now he's going right to left to get in. So I would actually change that so that he was going this way to maintain the proper screen direction. This really goes on for a long time, and I'm not sure if there was supposed to be dialogue here or not, but it really slows down. Like, I understand building tension, but this might be a little bit long. And then this is cool.
It was my mistake that I did the audio. But if you want, because right now you have control, there's an audio button, and that feature to mute others is available.
Ooh, where would I find that?
The audio button, if you click it, at the bottom, the little speaker.
Oh, it's covered up. It was covered up. This one.
Yeah, you can go to mute others, and then you should have your audio back.
Okay, cool.
Oh, it's still muted though, for you.
Oh, I see. There we go. I think this is a brilliant idea, by the way, to take an old radio play and storyboard it. I love it. Not just because I'm a fan of Westerns, but if anyone else wants to take this kind of idea, take an old radio play and board it out. Really brilliant idea. This hat, I'm confused about the hat because the hat is on the ground, way far in the background. And now there's a hat in front of the door. So that's confusing to me. This is kind of let me play from here. I feel like the camera is pulling out, but I feel like the camera should be pushing in to this guy crying. This is kind of a weird comedy beat for the context of this this scene,
Jim,
considering he's about to blow his own head off. Kind of a weird. It seems like a odd juxtaposition of comedy and tragedy. But you know, whatever. Maybe that's
I'm
the tone of the show.
afraid,
Sorry, let's-
afraid. I've always been afraid of things.
you can stop being afraid of the law and jail right now. It's all over with.
You mean that, Marshal?
This is nice. Like whenever you have an emotional, when a character's having some real serious emotions, you want to get. This was something that was hammered to me when I was working on the Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs series. Get close into their face. Don't do like a two-shot when someone is having, you know, a real emotional moment.
Marshal? Really?
Really.
But I shot you.
Now, Jim, listen to me. You didn't shoot me.
Oh,
One note that you might get is backgrounds. If you have the time, always draw the backgrounds. Make sure it's clear where the characters are in every single frame,
well,
rather than just
all right.
this, gray.
All right, if you say so, Mr.
I
Jones.
say so. Here, I'll take that rifle.
It's a shotgun, but okay. So that's I love that. I love this this scene, but let's go to They'll Be Fine. This is by Kale, Keyl provided this. I thought it was pretty groovy. Let's take a look. There's no audio here, just FYI. And it's all pretty great. All this action reads. It's kind of a nice, it's not quite a wipe, but you're revealing the characters behind another characters, so that's always nice and clever. I don't think I have any notes so far. Oh yeah, I remember now. So one thing, I understand that she's looking at him. A big thing in animation is cheating. When I say cheating, I mean she doesn't need to turn directly at him to look at him. Like you might get a note to open a character's body up more towards the camera, even when they're talking to someone off camera or in a different direction or whatever like that. So again, like profiles usually avoid depending on the production.
We will also, as a rigging department, if we are running behind, profile views are the first thing that we will cut
Right.
to build a character. So if we see profile views being used in a way that's like we have too many, for the same reasons that you say cheat in or cheat out, we will strategically only build quarter fronts or quarterbacks so that you kind of have that cross between. Um, Profile views typically have to be super specific to be built in a production. Like we really need to have a reason to build a profile view sometimes.
Yeah. And then the only other note I would have is again, not knowing the context of this scene, an establishing shot would be nice. Like where are they? Just like that seems to be some kind of a chasm or a pit. So just like a nice wide establishing shot of them in the pit. Other than that, no notes for Kale. Let's go to Daxton Dipadzia Grandroid. Let me cut that in here. Put that right in here. Here's a nice establishing shot, although we don't see any characters yet, but that's fine. I'm going to panel through this. We have a cat jumping over what looks like a log. First thing I would suggest is like maybe have a smaller pose. Am I still in drawing mode? No. Let me get to drawing mode. Oh, pin. Okay. Oh, I can't draw and click through at the same time. Okay, never mind. Make this large size. Yeah, so I would, now I'll do a draw, like do a start pose of like him just starting to come over. Here, this is my, for those who are asking what my thumbs are, there's my thumb. Very rough. Like I might even might not put the ears and the nose on this character for just for the thumbnails, I mean, not for the roughs. Okay. Okay, here we go. Oh, I need to erase that. Sorry, I'm new to this software. And then he jumps out. Again, I might put an in-between pose because it's such a big drastic change of size. And then I would panel out him running instead of having this red line. I would actually draw the jump off the rock, the landing on the other side of the stream, and then what you have here. This is always nice to have a nice foreground element for to get depth, to create mood. That was a big thing on a lot of the shows I worked with. Most recently, Agent Elvis is like put something in the foreground to make the composition interesting and to show depth. So I would start this frame without the cat in it, and then have the cat move into it, and I would draw another frame. It looks like we're both panning and zooming, which is a little confusing. And I would panel out all the stopping and the skidding and everything. So just basically more drawings on this one. He's already looking up, so he doesn't need to have this arrow here unless you want to have, in this panel, have him not looking up yet. And then I would draw a panel of his head coming into frame. Nice rack focus there. And then we can see that we are zooming up, or not zooming up, but panning up to the tree. So then he would no longer be in frame, and then we would have, again, I would do a start pose here of him looking up and then getting into this position, looking back behind him. And then, ooh, some mysterious lady, she comes out of the shadows. I might do an in-between, either like 50% gray or having her coming out of the shadow, like gradually, rather than just like bang. She's in the light. And again, if she's looking around, instead of drawing the red arrow, you might be asked to panel that out for the cleans. Again, this would be fine if it was the roughs pass. Why don't you get down from there and come home? Great composition. Getting very close to the rule of threes. If you don't know what the rule of threes is for composition, look that up. Actually, maybe I'll just do a very brief. So the rule of threes is divide your panel into thirds and use these points as kind of like the focal points. So having the tree on this side, great. Having the character around this area, great. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, I need to get out of drawing mode. Okay. She's shaking her fist. There's a nice close up. Her eyes go red. And then she's clearly a cyborg. And she's got her ray gun. Here's what I would do. I would lift this arm into frame with the sleeve fully down as a drawing, then draw her pulling back the sleeve, and then having the thing open as like one, the hatch opens. You can see the gun inside, the gun comes halfway out, that's another drawing, and then you get to this drawing that we have here. So really, again, paneling out this action. Love what's happening here. I'm not sure if this is a cut or if this is supposed to be a camera movement. It looks like a cut to me, in which case it's a little bit awkward. It's not quite a jump cut, except for the tree. What's bothering me is the tree. The tree is the same in both of these frames. So I would redraw that to make it more different, to reorient the tree. But the action's fine. I would panel out the the heart beating, the breathing here. Chest big, chest small. That would be. And again, I would, in this frame, I would have him leave frame entirely. And in this frame, I would have an empty frame and he comes into frame. That's all very nice. Again, I would have him looking down to the left as a start pose and then turn into this pose that we have here. Oh my goodness, what's happening here? Okay. I'm confused. But I think we spent, I think we got some good stuff on this board. And the clock's a ticking, so maybe we go to the next one here, 11:30. Sonika Bagwe?
Hello. Hi. Yes, it's Bagway. Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Glad you're here. Was this the one I wanted to do? Imagination? Yes, I think that's the one. Awesome. Let's see if I can make this big. Yes, perfect. Great. All right. Here's a nice, good establishing shot. I can click through. I guess this is the Ginzi as a voiceover here. And
Yes.
great. A little bit of a push in, but I feel like we need more of a push in. It's so subtle. It's almost like why is it there? It's so subtle. So I would either make it bigger or just not do the push in. Either is fine. So now we're cutting into the window and the drapes on the window. I would adjust this composition. First of all, he just appears next, like he needs to, I would have him, he doesn't need to get up here, but I would definitely have him not here in this frame. I would also move everything over to the left by like 20 to 30%, because there's a lot of negative space where nothing is happening on the left side of this composition. Yeah, other than that, I would also panel out the kids playing, because right now it almost looks like he's looking at a picture or something, because there's no movement here. So, you know, just maybe A, B, and C of the kids playing, the ball going back and forth. Don't need to get too complicated. Looking at the window. He's looking down to the right and he's still looking down to the right. Okay, so that's fine. Closes the window. Again, I would have, you know what's bothering me here is there's a lot of floor. There's a lot of floor in a lot of these compositions. So it looks like don't know how tall he's supposed to be, but it's not too bad. It's bumping me just a little bit. But I would actually take that horizon line, the floor, and I would just move everything in the background down. That might be a fix. And then again, I would actually, you know what I would do here? I wouldn't start on this wide. I would start maybe here and just track with him as he moves rather than him moving towards the camera. I need to erase all drawings. Just like what you're doing here, you're kind of moving the camera back with him. I would do that for this whole thing, and that will remove the problem of him being basically the same size in both of these frames. And then he puts the paper up on the wall. I would hook up the poses because here he's kind of facing the wall. So I would make him facing the wall here as well. And then he turns and leaves the frame. And then we push into the Ginzy drawing, which is fine. It's a little creepy, but I like it. He's gone to bed now. And I'm not sure, is it a magical light that's brightening up the room? Because he's not
Yes.
turning. Okay, gotcha. Then that's fine. The legs come out and it lands on the floor, which is pretty great. I would, right now what's happening in this frame is they're touching each other. I would put him maybe like, I don't know, here. You might even have like, he's so shocked, like maybe he even changes his position. What? I don't know if you want him to get out of bed or whatever, but just something to, so that they're not, you don't get a tangent of the edge of the, of what's his name? Ginzy?
Yeah.
Ginzy, you don't get the edge of his paper touching the edge of the main character's shirt there. We're still drawing. I don't want to be drawing. Okay, and then he runs extreme perspective running, which I love. I'm not sure what's happening here. Okay, I see this. I would actually maybe adjust the camera out with the legs a little bit. So that, and the advantage of that is, let me get my pen. We get a little more of this character in the frame, just as a bit of like, so you're just widening out with as he runs out. So then you're getting more stuff over here on this side of the frame. And that will kind of telegraph a little bit, like, because when I first watched this, I was like, what is that? It didn't click with me where that thing was coming from, what it was. So just getting a little more of that character in this, like have the Ginzy leave frame entirely. And then you might have him even coming in like big and then getting smaller as he gets closer in.
Mhm.
And then Ginzy does the perspective here seems like a little bit off. Usually we like to have a lot of room at the top of the frame, but I kind of feel like the horizon line for this shot might be better served here, so you can get a little bit more distance between the characters. Does that make sense? Because it feels like a little bit, it's not too bad, but it feels a little bit like Ginzy is huge in this perspective. And then, you know what I would do? I would take that, I would remove this shelf from the background altogether. Another trick to do is make your backgrounds like maybe 50% gray, so that your black characters stand out better against the background. And there's no confusion of where one begins and the other one ends. So, but for right now, having this shelf with a trophy on it is really drawing the eye towards that, and that's not the important part of the show. So I would just get rid of it. But yeah, but a lighter tone background, like kind of like what you've done with the floorboards. They're like this gray. I would make everything no darker than that for the background.
Okay.
That's a good way to get your characters to, so it's instantly readable who are the characters and what's not important background. I think that's, we'll move on to the next one. That's pretty great. Good storytelling for sure. Like you understand what's happening, which is nice. Thank you, Sonica. Next I have Nia Lee. Train boards, let's take a look. Make it bigger. All right. Here we have some trains, some train tracks. I guess this could cycle to make it longer. And then we see the full train. Here's what I would do with this train. I would panel this out more. So it's not just 2 shots of the train. Like I would like maybe even up to 5. Also, when you are doing this kind of thing, I would have the second pose. The drawings would be like in between these lines. Does that make sense? So that, because right now, oh my God, normal pen mode. Right now, where are we? Sorry. You can see like it's basically these sections of the train are kind of jump cutting themselves. And I would have it, yeah, just start a little bit further back. This is going to be, if this is a 2D show, animators might not like this, but yeah, and then I would have it,
I can say right now, we would not like
yeah,
that. Although if you really look, if you wanted to start for rigs, the angles, what's nice about this shot is that the angles are repetitive, and it's not like it's like a loop-de-loop.
yeah,
Like we only need to have a couple angles there, and then it's repetitive, so we would reuse the rig, we would reuse the animation. That's nice, but any sort of vehicle with curves
mhm,
means more angles, which means more building because we're not 3D. So that's the money shot if it was any more complex.
yeah. Yeah, if this were a 3D show, then that's much less of an issue. The only other thing about this frame is I say there's a lot of nothing in the right-hand third. So I would just adjust the frame so you see more of the train and less of the ocean on that side. Here we see we're zooming out from the sunset window. I would do an in between these 2 poses, and this character could parallax in, which parallaxing means like, how do I describe parallaxing in this way? Like it wouldn't be the same. She would be bigger when she's closer and smaller when she gets, oh gosh, yeah, just draw it. So it's kind of like the Jaws. What do you call that? So this is the window. You're zooming as you zoom out, her layer is moving into the frame. And if you're in Storyboard Pro, you can actually animate this layer so the layer moves, or you might just draw it, panel it out coming in it, and then you get to the final frame where her end pose. I hope I described that properly. But yeah, more panels I would say on this. She's having some emotions. We're nice and close to her face so we can see those emotions, which is great. We're seeing some sparks. Estella wipes her tears as sparks are seen outside her window. And then we're looking at her POV, and then a nice wide, and we're tracking back out of the window, away from the window. Again, I might do an in between because the sizing is a little bit much. And then we're panning to the right, and I would actually do an in between these 2 poses where you can just kind of see a bit of the window before we get to no window at all. Erase all drawings, normal non-drawing mode. And then this is nice. I would maybe get the door more center to frame, but it's not too bad. And then we see it looks like they're tippy-toeing. I'm not sure if they're supposed to be tippy-toeing or if they're just normal walking. We zoom into the door. That's nice. Somebody is walking. I feel like if I'm on this train, there's an issue with the perspective. Like I feel you wouldn't be able to see this floor unless the doors, you were looking down through the doors. Does that make sense? But yeah, the horizon line is too high in this shot, I would say. And then we're from the back of Estella's head. I don't know if she's supposed to be, if we should she be drawing anything, or is she just hesitating? And even if she's hesitating, I would put I would do another pose of the hand, because right now nothing is happening in the shot. So even if she's hesitating, I would just have a bit of a hand movement of some kind. Another issue with perspective, I would maybe make this person like this, because right now the horizon line is going to be, yeah, where these two meet. So it's going to be like here. So that would be the horizon line, which means this is a very small person. So I think the easiest way to fix this is just to size up the person. Otherwise you would, yeah, because this door doesn't match the height of these doors. So if this is the door height, then these doors should be, this should be the top of the doors here. Important perspective tips. And moving on. Yeah, just some general sizing issues with the character. Again, this person looks very short, or those doors are huge. So an easy fix. Grabs the handle, nice insert. I might start her, because in all the previous shots, she was looking that way. I might have her, I might just flop this, which is means horizontally flipping, just so she's just looking away before she turns. It doesn't have to be, it's very subtle. And because kind of the rule is if you're doing any dramatic turn, you want to start from as far, A and B should be as opposite as possible without being ridiculous. So just a little bit more of a dramatic turn would be nice. That seems about right in terms of height for both the characters, with sitting down and standing up. Again, here's another issue with the top of the tippy top of the head is touching the top of the frame. So just lower them down a bit. How are we doing for time? 10:45. Let's move on to the next one. I hope this has all been useful for everyone.
I think that it's going very well. I'm learning so much. I'm taking so many notes. My notes probably don't look like everybody else's, but I'm learning a ton. So I hope everybody else is.
This is Amelia K. Ora. Thank you for submitting this one. This is, okay, great. And they even put their website on the front page. Smart, smart for your portfolio. Here's some tops of trees. We're pushing through the trees, which is delightful. And we can see the two characters now. So this is basically our establishing shot, which is great. My only critique here would be they're a little far away from center of the frame. I would just put them more in the middle. So we're more looking, I mean, we are looking down on them, but we're closer to the top of their heads, if that makes sense. And push in, pushing in, pushing in, that's nice. This one, it looks like she's looking down at something that the audience should be interested in, but I don't think she is. So I would just have her not do that. Maybe looking, yeah. She's also oh, I see. So there's a pan happening. So that's, I still think she should be more center frame. If that means you need to push in a little bit closer so you don't show the other character yet, that's fine. So for these frames, the character on the right is too close to the edge of the frame. you widen out here, which is good, but still I would go wider. Give a little breathing room around the edges of the frame. This is a jump cut because I don't think this is a camera move. So this is a jump cut. The character on the left is basically the same size and same position in the frame. So that's something we want to avoid. Also, the character on the right looks like she's too short because the background doesn't represent this kind of a high angle. So if I were going to do this, I would be like, I kind of feel like you'd almost be able to see, and there's the wall behind them. But really, I think the thing to do, let me check what the next shot is. Yeah, I think you just want to, if you're going from this, just do a single on her while she's talking. You don't need this character over the shoulder in the frame. And then you can go here, that's fine. But again, I would put her like there. There's her glasses, there's her ear, hair, whatever. And moving on, and then going to there. It's not, I would go a little wider maybe to avoid the jump cut of the character on the right. Yeah, I would go a lot wider actually. And all this acting is wonderful. Same note as before. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question? But only because I don't know as much about camera moves and the technical. And I know that you've posted an image earlier in the Discord about the types of shots. But can you just give a quick rough what it means to go wider?
Yeah. So I would like, so wider. I don't know. This is kind of like, well, this is a 2-shot, but it's kind of like a medium close. So I would go by wider. I would be like, you can see the bench. And these two characters are maybe not necessarily quite that wide, but just to avoid jump cuts between, go back to normal, between this shot and this shot. Because again, the character on the right is basically taking up the exact same amount of space in the frame and almost the exact same angle. So watching it will be confusing for viewers. And I would have, so it looks like she's going to peek over the top of the wall here. I would have her more in this frame. I would have her move up more, like almost a quick shot of her butt. So that, ooh, hey, what? Okay. so like she really gets up and you can see like her legs. So you can really tell that maybe she's reaching up with her arms here. Just to get her more out of that frame with her head. Not 100% necessary, but I think it would be nicer. And also you always want to give the editor the maximum amount of choices that you can. So maybe the editor will decide, maybe I drew that drawing like I want with the butt shot, and then the editor says, we don't have time, we got to cut this short. So maybe that shot might get cut after all, but also maybe the episode's shorter than it's supposed to be and they need extra time. So those extra drawings will give the editor more choices and the director more choices, which is something that I always try to do. And then she comes up. I might do a start pose without those fingers, but it's fine. It's fine as is. I'm not sure what's happening here. It looks like she's looking through bars. I don't know where those bars are. So context for that might be necessary. It's clearly a POV shot, but I'm confused. I'm confused about that.
We're in our last 10 minutes, so I'm going to let you know that. And if you've got time to go through, I know you've got a couple more, so 2 more, if you can do 2 in this time, but I'm
Yeah,
sure
let's take a look.
If people want to start posting their questions in the chat, make sure that you're sending them to me, the organizer, And I will, if we don't get to them all today, I'm going to find a way to put them all onto the Discord so that you have access to these questions and answers.
Cool. This is a late entry, but I like it, and I can provide some notes for this one. This is, wait, where are we going back here? Go back, go back, go back, go back. I'm not sure why it started at the end, but okay. So this is, who is this? Mickey / Miranda, a grave proposal.
And Mickey's in the chat, so if Mickey wants to unmic themselves, if you want to talk to Toren, and a conversation might help.
No spoilers though.
Hi, I'm Mickey.
Awesome. This is a fine establishing shot. You can clearly see we're in a graveyard. The two characters come in. They're silhouetted. That's always easy on animation if a 2D character is silhouetted. And there's a girl and a ghost. I might have them leave frame altogether before you cut, just as an option for the editor. And then here's some good parallaxing as the gravestone rises into frame as the characters come towards. Sad, nice shadow. I would have both the characters on the right side of the screen right now. I would actually have the ghost enter more on the right side of the screen just for screen direction clarity. Yeah, and then this is totally a stylistic choice that I would make, but I would actually have them go fully behind the tombstone and then rise up from behind. If you want to go have a little comedy moment there. I like all the acting on these characters is great. There's a hookup needed here because right now she's behind the grave, and in this next shot she's kind of on top of the grave. So either have her come up out of frame in this close-up, or in the wide have her do it there. So maybe start this shot with her, in that other position, and then get into this position. And then again, I would do a start pose where this character, I would do a frame where the ghost is not in frame yet and it comes into the frame for this shot. Not a huge deal, but it might be helpful. I love these characters. They have a lot of character. And then we got a nice cut in of the shovel going into the earth, which is awesome. I might actually, no, this is fine. Except suddenly the boot is on the shovel. So I would either put the boot on the shovel in the close-up or have her do that movement in the wide. It might be easier for animation to have the boot come into this shot, so there's less leg animation on this shot, but either way, it's fine. So you've got an extreme close-up, full body wide, and then very wide, and then you go back to an extreme close-up. So I would just ditch this shot. I would just do either all the action in this wide or in this wide, because it's kind of disorienting to go like really close in and then really wide and then really close in and then really wide. So that's just something to watch out for. There's obviously time lapse happening here, which is great. I love it. She passes through. That's good. Good stuff. Where is this clump of earth going in this next shot? Does it pass through her? Does it go over her? Does it land on the pile? Something to consider.
I would say land in the pile, like join the pile.
Yeah, I might just draw that then, because right now
Okay.
these two is a little confusing there. I like this shot. She peeks over. I might, again, just to give the option, I might not have the ghost in this shot yet. I might draw a pose without, or a frame without the ghost coming in. Getting a little close here with the top of, again, yeah, pull out a little bit or just move the frame up. Let me, like to here, just give this amount of room in the frame, because right now you got the tangent going here. It's too close. And I like it. I like it. I like it. This is great. Nice action, A-B posing. It looks like, this doesn't look like it should be a cut. But it looks like,
It's not really meant to be. It's meant to be like a camera move where it's following her hands to the side of the
right.
coffin.
Okay, I might do an in-between on these then,
Okay.
where she's halfway there, just to clarify that.
Yeah.
And then, so this is definitely a cut. So I would have, she hasn't opened it yet, and now it's suddenly open. So I would do start pose with her, you know, where she's like, basically her hands are out of frame. And then she comes back to the position that you have. And then she tosses it out of the way. That's fine. Good gag. Nice pull out. Yeah, that's fine. And I would just be careful about your character's screen direction here. She's on the left, the ghost is on the left, and then it's suddenly on the right. So you might, what I might suggest you do is what we call in the industry cutting on action. So have her start to move, just super quick, either in front of her or behind her, either one, however you want to get her where she go. And then when you get to the next shot, erase cell drawings, then have her whip around. So you're cutting on the action as she like, whoosh, you know what I mean? And yeah, I guess we're at time. I love this. I love the characters. And that's the end of the shot. So that's the end of the animatic. So great work.
Thank you.
I guess we're done. It's 12 o'clock in Vancouver
We
time.
did our time. I did have one question that came up, and I actually had the same thought, so I'm going to ask it. And it's about the moment that you said that you preferred to add extra drawings so that the editor could take away information. It's better to have, I guess I'm making a statement right now based on what you said, but it's better to have more panels, more drawings, more stories so they could be edited down than
Yeah.
to have less story, less panels, then you have to fill gaps.
Yeah, if you have the time for it, I will usually and when it comes to like someone entering frame, just having them not there is super easy to do, right? You just take that layer off in Storyboard Pro. And so just giving them that extra little frame can be super helpful. And it gives them more editing choices.
And would you do that at the rough stage or the cleanup phase? That was the question.
Either or. Either's fine. Yeah,
Right,
no strong feelings one way or the other. Probably maybe if you're feeling the time crunch, then save it for the clean stages. So if you have time to do it, then you'll be able to do it then. Yeah.
All right, well, that's our time. That was our presentation, and I just want to say thank you so much to Toren because that every time we do this, I take multiple notes. And maybe what I'll do is I'll actually go back and post my notes, even though my notes aren't going to look like everybody else's notes, I'm sure. But how many pages? I got 1, 2, 3 pages of notes. From this chat.
Fantastic.
So I hope that everybody else got just as much out of it as I did, and we hope that you have a great rest of your day and your weekend. Toren, do you have any final words?
Yeah, can I promote myself?
Oh, of course, yes, hands down.
Yeah.
Please do.
So my website's torenatkinson.com, Instagram at Toren Atkinson Artist, Facebook Toren Atkinson Artist. I also have a Facebook group called Only the Best Storyboarding Tips. So if you friend me on Facebook, I can add you to that. I have a YouTube channel, and lately I've been analyzing the 1980s D&D cartoon from a storyboard artist perspective. So that's a lot of fun. Yeah, just just put Toren Atkinson into your YouTube. And every Sunday morning, I live stream a drawing of a monster from Dungeons and Dragons and try to do it in 20 minutes. So I call it 20-minute monsters. And yeah, I think I'm Toren Atkinson artist on Twitch as
Yeah.
well.
And if anybody's interested in Dungeons and Dragons, Torin is really the way to go. I have a quick question. Are your podcasts, Caustic Soda, still online somewhere?
You can still listen to my podcasts, Toren's Guide to Everything and Caustic Soda, on the internet. It never goes away.
If you are interested in some fun podcasts, I highly recommend. I guess they're kind of old now, but I would not expect them to be any less entertaining now than they were back then when I was listening to them. So highly recommend following Torin and that website that you're talking about with the storyboarding tips. We'll probably try to figure out how to work together on that because I
Sounds
would
great.
love to promote you on that as well. So
Sure. I hope
thank
this was
you,
helpful for everyone. I had a great time.
We'll figure out how to get the rest of the questions because there's a couple questions about outsourcing. There was a couple other questions about storyboarding specifically. So we'll try to get those into the Discord. And again, we're newer, so we're still trying to figure out how to organize a lot of this information. So if you've got feedback from us, feel free to reach out and message me directly on Discord. I'm kind of on there almost all the time, so you can always catch me and we can talk about this stuff. But I'll post my notes in the chat and feel free to do the same. Have a good rest of your weekend, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.